Welcome to Built to Last, the podcast where entrepreneurs share real stories about the triumphs and challenges of building enduring success. Hosted by Colby and Levi Lawrence.
All right, excited for this season ender. This is going to be just the two of us, no guests. Hopefully that was clear when you looked at the description of the episode. Under a year, but we're going to call it a season, where we started with the idea, both Colby and I, over wine and Indian food. We really wanted to have interesting conversations. We started out, and I think the first 3 or 4 episodes, we didn't even have a name. And we just wanted to have real, meaningful, complicated conversations because we were working with founders, leaders, and business owners that didn't have a place to have those conversations, and the really serious or complicated or hard to talk about topics just weren't in reels and aren't on social media and aren't having those conversations. And I think that we did that. So as this launches, what we're recording right now, that'll be 15. But our episodes range from like an hour and 10 minutes to like over 2 hours, long ranging, fascinating conversations that, they weren't meant to be for everybody, but they were meant to be fun and enjoyable and to get some really interesting topics. So first, kudos to us. I think, the stat that I'm going to make up is that not many podcasts actually get through like a full 10 episodes. We're at 15.
Congratulations. That's why I picked the worst shirt that I own to celebrate. This was in the give it away pile, and I'm going to wear it one more time before I give it away. This is our celebration shirt, and it's terrible. But hey.
And I didn't get the memo. I wore this shirt for a different reason, but we're going to get into it in a bit.
It's actually extraordinarily hot in this room right now. I had a sweater on and I had to change. And Dylan, our producer, was like, just close your eyes and grab a shirt. And this is what came out. So we're sticking with it.
Before we talk about what's upcoming next, and because we are going to continue the podcast, and we're going to focus it a bit more, and we're both excited about that new focus. And I didn't preempt you this, but I was wondering if you had any top takeaways of really meaningful bits and pieces that you got out of the last, like 10 months?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's like an overarching theme that this is what we're supposed to be doing. Similar to the same reason we're in peer groups and we continue to want to be in peer groups. These conversations are rare. They're few and far between. They happen in those peer groups. And I think that because we're giving it a bit of a platform to have these really open conversations and, crossing that line of personal and business, I just think it's fascinating. And I think that's, also similar to the peer groups. Entrepreneurs often feel super isolated, and hopefully some people are hearing this and being like, okay, like everybody's a bit of a mess. That's not going to change, but we're trudging through it kind of together. And there's some really great pieces that people can take away from these things. And I think that's probably the overarching thing. Some really big standout stuff for me was Anthony Rice, like learning about offshoring and the possibilities around that. Like that was super fascinating for me.
Especially like from a people factor, like talking about the families and meeting them with those people that, are offshore, but not real.
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing is like, these people aren't real. I treat these people potentially differently than my internal people. And that's just not the case. It's like, no, they're in your team. And I just thought it was a fascinating approach, and I've completely changed my mind around it. And I'm, continue to be curious about it. Also, Justinus, I got quite a bit out of that one. Like it was a very personal, very raw conversation. The perception that somebody has everything together all the time, like when you meet somebody, it's just never the case, and you never know what people are going through. And so that conversation for him to be growing a business and dealing with, the health of his daughter and stuff, and getting through that and continuing to grow, and also having a family, moving to another country, and like that stuff is just...
The part that resonated and lasted with me the longest, I mean, it was a very good conversation, but it was at one point he made the choice.
Yeah.
And some of the other people we talked to, and myself and the history and other people we know, like you champion perseverance and grit so far that you go long enough that the choice is made for you.
Yeah.
And at one point, the way we heard it from him is like he just had to make the choice and made a pretty dramatic life changes that had consequences. And I just like the courage of making choice is really interesting.
Michael, the thing that I got from him is the just go do it. And that's something like I now I think because we work with so many different businesses and we see so many, like, we're dealing with issues all the time. Like it's almost this Goldilocks thing where we're looking for the perfect business to get involved in, for us personally. And I think that his podcast was just like, hey, it's going to be hard. Just go do it. Make the choice. Go do it. Go both feet in. I often think about that.
Now, he also, or at least the way I interpreted it was, he had a few successes, and that probably brought his guard down to underestimate some of the challenges of new things.
Yeah,
Probably a double-edged sword to that as well. Like you
totally.
need that certain amount of positivity, just go do it, naivete, but you also like you are learning about some valuable lessons of things that might not go so great.
Yeah, and that finding that little like push and pull, but not to have that paralysis feeling of like not doing anything, is interesting.
Just on this note, I the whole Michael just go do it. It was resonating. It's funny that you brought it up because you called me last night while I was on the treadmill with a business idea,
Mm.
and it has all kinds of merit. It was fun and exciting, and it might even be a thing. And immediately, all that could go through my head was all the reasons why it wouldn't work. And I think I've mentioned in past episodes, but I definitely have mentioned to you that like one of the nicknames I got when I was an advisor hired by a Chamber of Commerce and other programs was like half jokingly the dream killer because I'm really good at giving pragmatic, like hard advice after friends and family have kind of fluffed you up. But you can go too far. Like there's nothing immediately that should be discouraged about that business idea, but I know so many other things that could go wrong.
Yeah.
And it was hard to like hold both in your head, the optimism and the excitement, but also the like reality piece. So it's something that I've been thinking about.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And then Marina being from Ukraine and talking about starting an EO chapter in Ukraine and some of the updates that those folks would come in with on a monthly basis, worrying about missile strikes and power outages and stuff. I'm just like, well, we've got a lot to be very, very grateful for.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to get caught up in our own worlds. And, there's levels to stress.
It's hard to compare pain and challenge, and it's almost not fair to do so, but I know that I left that conversation feeling, how do I check my privilege with also allowing myself to feel. Having a cash flow crunch and a Miracle Friday is a rough thing. Don't discount that for anybody. At the same time, probably not going to have a bomb go off in my vicinity.
Yeah, there's just a quick side story. Our advisor and mentor and friend Joel Hunter, like I've been talking to him every 10 days for the last 7 years, and he always does these funny things when he jumps on calls, and you just never know what he's going to say. And we picked up the phone one time, and he said it was right around, it was a few years ago. There was conflict going on in Syria, and he just described this scenario. He's like, you know, like there's bombs going off, and you know, just treacherous things. He got pretty detailed with it, and then he stopped and he said, "So how's your day going?" Honestly, we weren't having a great couple of weeks, and as soon as he said that, it was just like instant perspective shift. It's like, okay, we just got to go figure it out, and we better have a good attitude about it. What about you?
I mean, I'm afraid we're going to miss somebody because I enjoyed all of them. I think meaningful, real conversation are just like, if anything, hopefully the few people who would listen to all of these is like find a way to have more conversations that matter. I'm finding I have less and less patience with small talk. Like even just going out to the harvest and I'm talking to people who I know their story or we've had meaningful conversations, and it's like I have to have like guardrails because we're in a public setting and there's people all around us and we're going to be distracted. We know we don't have time to open things up and get to any kind of closure. And I find it frustrating because we've created some of these opportunities around us. I think for me, you already mentioned Anthony, but just some of the different perspectives from different regions I found really valuable. And I don't think we did not intentionally, or I didn't intentionally go find, we're in Atlantic Canada, but we didn't want to be pigeonholed or only talk from an Atlantic Canadian lens. But very early on, we had Anthony, who's from very far away, and Justinas, who was Western Canada, but also from South Africa. But then we had Constantino, who talks about entrepreneurship and growing businesses from a Mexican standpoint, and some of the culture changes. And even Michael himself is a newcomer to Atlantic Canada and relatively fresh. Like he's been here for years, but his whole adult life he was in
Transylvania.
I know Transylvania. There was another word, but yeah, I keep thinking vampire. But so I really think we did a great job of the diversity, and I don't mean diversity as in like color of skin necessarily, but just different points of the journey, different levels of experience, and very different perspectives. And some of them I think were like really learning. Like we wanted to learn things from them. Like I think we really pushed Dave Barnett because we were super curious on the stuff that he had to say.
Right.
And I think we had a lot of value, but in that moment in time, we were like, we're thinking acquisition. It's so hard to define, and there's an art, not a science. There's so many different things you get through lived experience. But then when we talked to, say, for example, Jen Warrington, I really wasn't there to learn. I was there because I'm equally passionate on the topic. And we were just like commiserating and talking about our different points of view on the same subject. And it was less like expert or guru giving us knowledge, or, that's the way I was feeling. It was like two members of the choir talking about the song, and both of them were equally enjoyable. So I think that was kind of a fun thing for me.
Yeah.
Talking about entrepreneurial mental health with an actual expert on mental health who has been able to talk about his own journey and self-awareness and challenges, and learning that when you are, and this is Rankin, and then talking about like when you become part of that profession, that you actually have to work on yourself to be able to work with others. And just that mindset and how I try to extrapolate that to other things. It's like those who can't do consult is often a joke. And it's like, well, in that profession, you can't like be unhealthy mentally and do a good job there. Like you actually like, so I got a lot from that.
Yeah. That it kind of goes back to like one of my biggest fears is this like can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Mm.
And it's something that I often just wake up like kind of panicked about. It's like, oh my gosh, am I creating patterns and things that I'm gonna regret and that I'm not even noticing? And like when I go away to these EO things or have these types of conversations, it is like it's always shifting my perspective on stuff, which is super exciting, and I'm like very, very grateful. It's amazing to me, and I think I may have said this before, that somebody might go through their whole life not knowing that this is even a possibility.
Mm.
To be like, not necessarily the pressure of a constant improvement environment, but just at least like checking your beliefs on a regular basis and being critical about them and not holding them too tightly.
I was thinking about just these conversations in our world that we built. Like we built a world that we want to play, and not just with the podcast, but with what we do. And we met a fairly young, both in experience of business and in age, entrepreneur who's built a fairly sophisticated and complex business. And we were just meeting, and they're not a client yet. Maybe they will be, but it was just a really rich hour-long tour and conversation. And she said multiple times at the end, is like, it was just good to talk to people who get it. And like when I would start talking about something, you immediately knew the next things that were going to happen to me are the things I was worried about, and it just made the conversation so much different. And I was like, yeah, it's great. This actually segues nicely. I don't know if you have any burning. I feel like we talked to everybody. I know we missed some, but the challenge that I think we've had, not necessarily with the podcast, but with the past, our work at Iron House Pro, where we consult and we project manage and we help companies adopt process and technology. And well, for those of you who don't know, I haven't looked at our website. We want to do all these things about just being that people who can hear and understand and work with you through those challenges. That's a really hard and vague thing to sell. And so I would say that the journey we've been on over the same time we've been doing this podcast is how do we, focus or at least position ourselves so that it's easier to understand. So we're not constantly, we just really want to be that helpful advisor who can bring all the knowledge and the steps from where you're at and helping you select software, helping you change your process, but not from a lens of reselling and technology ownership. Like we want to be that agnostic in your corner. And so that's kind of where we're going. Like to push us into the next part of this conversation is we recently did our strategic planning session, and we looked at all the things we do. like 6 months ago, we did strategic planning and we had changed our website because of it. We were so excited. We were going to be your partners in business improvement. And that was new. And then we recently looked at it, we're talking a week ago. And for me, it crystallized, and I can't remember who said it first, but everything we do is helping business owners and organizations navigate through change. Everything we do. Because you can talk about website development, you can talk about technology, you can talk about process, workflow mapping, all kinds of stuff. But everything we do is about helping people, especially those owners and managers and the company itself, flourish, culture, all that through some kind of change, because change is hard and it's hard to do from within. And now it comes up because I'm looking at all these speakers and all of them had their own changes. We didn't focus on that in the conversation, or some of them we did, I guess. But I'm really excited about that. How do you feel about what we've done and where we're going?
Mm. Yeah, it's funny that, you know, we were excited about all the things that we were doing. I just don't think we saw the story was kind of unfolding that we were specializing in change.
Mm.
And it was just, we couldn't really label it as clearly as we did the other day. And it seems obvious when we say it out loud now, but it kind of, I think it's Jim Collins that kind of pushes this, what are you best in the world at? I think. And when we were working with Simplicity with Matt Sims, who's going to be a guest, when we were working with him, he was constantly, we spent a lot of time on what we might consider the fluffy stuff. And at a lot of points, it's very, very frustrating to get through that
Mm-hmm.
because you're trying to come up with these one-liners, these like little tiny things that encompass a very complex back end. And I can now say with confidence, because at the beginning, and this was like 3 years ago, and I didn't know. Like I've always had this imposter syndrome of like, yeah, like we're doing good work, and but what are we the best in the world at? And I can confidently say that I really do think that we are extremely good at the change part of things because we're looking at the business from, you know, whether you think there's 4 pillars or 5 pillars, but we're looking at the entire thing, and we care about the entire thing.
And from the point of view of the business itself, not from some outside perspective.
And a lot of the times, like they might be unbelievable at 2 of those pillars, and in order to get them to where they need to go, they need to be adding in the others. And I'm excited about change. Like we're not really changing the services that we're offering because it's still under that same umbrella, but it's the approach and the intentionality around what we're doing and how we're selling it and the value that we're going to bring. And yeah, I'm very, very excited. It's almost like your shoulders can drop a little bit where I can confidently say that we're experts in change. And that little, that little special, you know, secret sauce has been just kind of creeping in the background, and it's really nice to be able to say it out loud and to feel confident about it.
And I think we built a culture internally because our team, we do Monday and Thursdays, we do just quick town hall. Like it's a small team and they talk about, shout outs and, what they enjoy and they're all like, they love, even before the client knows, they have an early part of the project and they've gone through this first discovery of like what the challenges are. And they're like, we're going to be able to like, I can picture where they're going and the team gets excited about it. And so I'm excited with that clarity and the buying in from our team as well.
Yeah.
We're at a good, interesting point because we've talked about, where the podcast was, and it really didn't have a focus. We talked about personal and business, but I think we didn't even follow that. We just had really wide ranging conversations on all kinds of topics. And I think we just wanted to get going. To your point earlier, we just said, let's get going. We don't need to overplan this. We don't have a lot of time day to day. It's got to be fun. But I'm excited about, starting to focus what the podcast does and what our company does. We're not looking at this to monetize and make this a sales tool completely. But I love the mission starting to align because we are interested in the topic authentically. the next season coming up, which I don't know how many episodes, we're not going to follow any rules. There's no points to this. There's no winning and losing. We're going to have the next season. So after this episode, everything is going to have a real focus, or at least a lot of the conversation sort of focus on navigating change. And we're going to talk to people who have been through change and in different types of change, both personal life and company life. And I think some of them are going to be just like major software adoption in a large organization, because that's complicated and people don't talk about how often those are not successful. But then there's going to be through life changes of like, the choices that Justina's made and how it affected business and how do you navigate that. So I'm excited about being a little bit more focused in where the conversation is going and why people might be interested. And my own reason for wearing the shirt, which is a segue I'm too long and verbose at getting at, we never announced it, but a moment of silence, the elephant's gone. And so this is an older branded shirt, but we haven't changed their name, and nor is it necessary. But we don't need the elephant. So we are feeling different, even though it's. I think we've changed our website like 3 times in 3 months as we go through, so we're changing more frequently. But I'm excited. I need new swag though. We're gonna have to work on the budget.
Yeah, I'll have to talk to Colton. Yeah, it's nice. I mean, when we first started this, there was not a lot of intentionality around it. We did not know what this was going to turn into. We wanted to do a good job with everything that we did, and we were just following opportunity. Starting off as this kind of creative boutique type agency, and then adopting all the process stuff and technology pieces. And I think that we all grew personally at the same time with our interest in business in general, and molding all those things together, and continuing to upskill as well. Like, you just got your PMP license. Huge congratulations. That was super. I was stressed for you. I wasn't saying it out loud. I was just cheering from the sidelines, but I was like, I hate tests. So yeah, good job on that one. And we're going to continuously improve the internal team as well. Like, we're going to be upskilling, and yeah, there's just a lot of things that we're excited about, and it feels like we're starting to know who we are. And that's hard from a personal side, as we're like, as you become an adult, and then you become a mature adult, and and then the company just, it was going in a lot of different directions over the past few years, and I feel like I'm settling into something a bit more comfortable.
One of the things about this new direction, both with the podcast, but especially with the company, is like if we're striving to be the best in the world at helping organizations, and really for me, I'm more passionate with the organizations like under 500 team members, like those smaller ones that still have people at the top with way too many hats on, and still more independent, but helping them navigate through change. I'm so excited and I feel so aligned with being the best at that, or becoming and striving to be the best at that, that I've lost all of my imposter syndrome and feeling of needing to have ego around expertise in the other parts.
Yeah.
So we build websites and I think we're good at it. And I always felt it's like, oh, we always have to show that we're really good web developers. It's like, no, I don't. We're really good at understanding why a website is important in your greater change goals, and we're really good at connecting it to the other projects internally about why. Like, often websites we build is they're also adopting a CRM, or they're also changing their brand, or they're also putting in an employee portal. And so like it's one part of a longer process. And so like if we don't have the internal talent, I'm no longer like, oh, we don't know everything. It's like, great. We need this hard line where we hold the change together. We will make the long-term goal. Because nobody wants a website. I had the whole drill hole analogy from Harvard. There's something else they want. They want an increase in sales, or they want more professional presence, or something they need. And it's just part of the process, but we can see the big picture and hold it together and allow us to collaborate more. So I'm excited about this opening up, is like us working closely with those people who are experts in their own space, that maybe we can overlap, but collaboration and work to like just the bigger picture.
Me as well. And you kind of made me think that, like, I think we should get into a couple examples of where, so people could see the opportunity, or understand that maybe what they're going through doesn't have to be the way it is. Potential blind spots that somebody might not be considering as a risk. Like when you mentioned, you know, you've got these organizations under 500 people, and maybe they're in office is 12 people in kind of some sort of leadership position, and one of those people might be wearing those five hats, and you might not be aware about exactly what they're doing. So I think giving some people examples of like to be able to recognize it in the organization where some of these opportunities might pop up. And I don't know if you have any specifics.
Well, I have some specifics. Usually we end up like, because we'll do a discussion where we don't talk solutions or diagnosis or anything. We just listen for the first meeting and really strive to understand, because everybody's different. But then we start saying, this is what we've heard and this is what we expect is happening. Is typically soon after, and I get a lot of like looking across the tables like, oh yeah, you mean that's not everybody that has that problem? And we have a few that we're actually working with right now that they've grown, whether it's over a few years or a long period of time, and they're successful. They're successful and they've grown and they're doing really well. And there's just a few friction or pain points. And then we start talking is like, well, you're successful and that's really great and you're doing good things. But you grew at a pace without necessarily investing in the system structure or process side. And this is really more typical when the person who started or the person who leads the business does the work or really understands the industry, comes from the industry, because it's easier for them to focus on the thing they sell, and not the structure around the business. But they get to this point, and when we're talking to them, and there's like often we're talking about them, there's some improvement they want to make that'll help them sell more or enter new markets, or you know, more effectively collaborate and be more efficient and increase their productivity. And we talk like, so we're going to suggest some things that aren't, if anything, they're going to hurt your margin. Because for those who are familiar with the term of like technical debt, is like when you rush computer programming and you leave some things you know aren't working correctly, but you need to get to the end. And then you have this debt that you know are problems that will come up in the future. And it's that for organizational growth. Or it's the term I used in a meeting the other day, the first time, we should find out if this is trademarked and try to, but it was the concept of artificial margin. And like, we talked to one company, is like, we're now recommending some things that you might want to prioritize, not because they will help you grow, not because they will help you more productive, but because they're going to reduce risk and make you more resilient. So right now they had built up and they were growing so quickly that their risk of 3 or 4 key people turning over was huge. Or if they had a cybersecurity breach or downtime in operations, the risk is now pretty easy to measure monetarily. This isn't like a soft risk. This is like a hard 6-figure number risk that I can put on paper that is accurate. There was a step 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago that like the right thing would have been to put in some of those mitigating factors, or put in some of those structure to avoid, or make it easier to bring more people in, and structure and job descriptions and processes and onboarding and training and knowledge base and building that brain of the organization. As like, and so you're going to go through a season of putting some of those in play, and it's going to feel like you're just wasting your bottom line. But right now you're benefiting from an artificial margin. Like, your margins are higher because you don't have that structure. You're flying so fast, you're flying so close to the sun, which is great as long as nothing goes wrong. And so that's been a conversation. Typically this is like, it's not 100%, yeah, no, totally, let's make all those investments. But then we can spin it around as like, if you were to go sell your business today, this is all very clear. The higher risk your business is continuing when you leave, the lower the multiple on the sale of your business. The more important your key people are in the sale of your organization or the transition of your organization, the less monetary value there is in that. Like I can paint that, and suddenly things really come together. But some organizations, it's not about the sale of the company. Nonprofits, we're working with some First Nation organizations, we're working for some community organizations, and it's still like the impact on your people is going to be so negative if these things happen. Let's make sure we shore things up.
Yeah, an example that might be like easy to see and to start thinking this way is the classic examples. If you've got like this key salesperson that brings in a lot of revenue that's not an owner
Or is an owner.
or is an owner, and that person goes away and they own all the relationships. You know, if you look at that one person that's been in the back office for 20 years and they know everything but nothing's written down, if you can't pass that to somebody else, if there's not a clear process on how to do the thousand things that they've been doing for the last 20 years.
Even in the event that that person leaves or the owner wants to stop selling and being the only driver of revenue, which again is a huge risk, will lower the value of your business. Even if that's not the negative of them pulling business away, it means that you have the challenge of having to find another unicorn, a unicorn human, who's going to execute that excellently for the business to continue performing. So you've built the dependence on this person and the unique combination of personality traits and experience that like you just can't guarantee you're going to find that. And so like the business, like we would have said this earlier, and I still believe this is to be true, is like building organizations that are more independently stable and structured to live beyond the people will create a better life for the people. So we're not saying we don't want people to be engaged, but we don't want them to feel like if I take next week off and really check out, everything will crumble. Like we want to build a place where I'm doing hard things and I'm getting hard things done and I'm super jazzed about my performance because I didn't know if I could do that and I executed it. That's great. But we don't want anybody who just like, well, no, I have to be there. I'll definitely check my phone at 9 p.m. or I'll definitely work on Saturday. Yeah, so I love the idea of helping organizations with that structure, putting it all in play. We're working for another specific example because it's not a big mammoth change. This happens in small bits. Well, actually, two. One, we're working for a company that's mature. It's been around for a long time. It's financially successful, and they're just now like in every year they're putting a little bit of improvement budget. And so, like this year, they're putting in their own training platform. So their new employees who come in on day one will have how to work for us, what it's like to work for us, their culture, and all the safety training in their own platform, built by them. You know, right now it's costing them money, but once they have that built, that's going to be something that's easy to maintain and continue forever. And it makes the company stronger because it's no longer a couple key trainers that have to do everybody master to apprentice style or job shadowing only. The other one is we have somebody who has a portfolio of companies. So I believe he's at 8 now, and they're all running pretty well. Like in his industry, he's outperforming most. When I talked to him, it was like it's working, but he hasn't taken more than 2 days off in years. And definitely has that feeling like everybody comes to him, but he has a manager at the top of every one of those businesses. So the whole project isn't a big one. It's just training on collaboration. It's some foundational culture, shared language, and shared experience for their managers. And it's giving them a very simple, low cost technology tool that allows the managers to talk to each other in one place. And it sounds super silly, but it was all like individual personal texts or walk by the space. Oh, hey, can you? Or the cell phone call saying, oh, can you do this? And everybody had to remember who what said. And you had no place to share with they didn't see themselves as a team. And it's funny, it's a very low cost piece of software and it's a little bit of training. But I think that's going to be a huge step in the right direction and sort this out. It wasn't a huge big project. It was just a really needed improvement point.
Just want to make sure we highlight how important it is. You mentioned the term shared language. When we start, doing a project, we try to get as many people involved as possible. But the importance of shared language is like, what exactly do you mean by what you just said? When there's passion involved and there's hecticness and like that level of miscommunication, like building that shared language about how we're thinking about things, and like because we did it internally where we can all kind of speak the same language and we're understanding expectations of each other, and I think that's a huge step for having less stress.
Yeah, shared experience and shared language. So language that is unique to your organization and you all know what it means, and shared experiences that you all go through things together or go through the same path when you start. Like if you all went through the same onboarding journey and you heard the same things, like it creates some of those foundational things that can be used in culture. And it sounds super fluffy, but having like real values and having real like company goals and strategy or vision that the entire company can embrace and talk about, and it's not just something that sits on the sign, like that becomes your language. We've recently had our team meetings. Everybody has to, at the end of one person every week, has to tell the team how they would explain what we do to a family member or friend. And it's just that shared experience, and like it's almost a little bit of stress with people we don't know what's randomly called. But people starting to use that. Like it's helpful for us. We hear it out of our own mouths, but also out of our teams. But it's become a shared experience. They all feel closer and stronger together, I think, because of some of those little tiny moments you create.
And another layer to that for teams is like you can agree on a way that you conflict.
Yeah. And the importance of the conflict.
Yeah, like if we've created a safe environment for us to conflict about, things, the complex things is very tough in the beginning because there's still those kind of those old scars and the perceptions and things. But once we kind of set that framework of like, hey, this is how you can have these conversations, there's a ton of less stress and like the worrying about those kind of crucial conversations that you feel like you need to have, like helping teams frame that up so that they can feel calm and not hyper emotional.
And like we haven't really sorted out how we're going to reframe our own service offerings, but what like this whole bucket's like the jargony term is change readiness. What are the things that are true in your organization are already in place that will make any change more likely to be successful faster? We have companies who are like pushed to go through a change, or they have this big like we just need this software adopted, and it's fairly complex. So great. Well, let's start with like team building exercises. Let's start with teaching some communications exercises. Let's start with making sure your culture is healthy, and we go through some 5 dysfunctions or behaviors, and they're like, but that's not like just install the software. It's like I can show you the studies, but we can make sure that we set the right environment for that change to happen more effectively, because we know and we can point to the studies of how costly it can be if those changes aren't successful.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about the future. And so we talked a lot about how the company's transforming. And really, I don't think we're changing anything we do. It's just how we talk about it and how we focus on why we do it. And probably who we're going to do it for will start to be more clear and clean for us. For the podcast, it's still going to be called Built to Last, because I think organizations that are able to go through change effectively are built to last. And also people who can navigate change more effectively are more built to last. So I like that the name doesn't need to change at all. But I think that you'll see like this is the season of change. And our upcoming guests, we've got a few that we're already kind of interested in and in the pipeline of becoming guests, and we've talked to them, and this topic was resonated with all of them. I don't think you can be in this space for very long without understanding the challenge or having gone through some significant changes and want to chat through the learning. I don't know if I know anybody who like I said it to that young entrepreneur the other day, is like, I don't want anybody to learn the lessons the hard way. I do think some people have to learn lessons the hard way. I will never withhold advice. Like, find me on LinkedIn or call. Like I mean, if I have to engage the team and do a project, then yeah, there's some financial consideration. But if you want to know how it was when I went through a business closure and got over that, or if you want to know how it was when I changed and moved locations, or went through a hurricane and closed my store, or went through the merger with us and the lessons we learned. I don't want anybody else to have to go through that when they could have just called and they were open to hearing that.
Same. We've been through a lot, and that those road rash stories, that door's wide open for anybody, and we're not hard to find. But yeah, and you just made me think. We forgot to mention Jean-Francois. Speaking of somebody that's gone through a lot, and from the age 16 to where he is now.
And I didn't say her name, but like the whole time I was thinking about like being generous with your perspective of having gone through major change was Tracy. Relatively soon after a major like public failure or close, the same, like the willingness to talk about those typically comes from like, I don't want anybody else to feel like they have to go through that alone.
It's so funny now that I think we've said all the names.
The more fun change, the less serious change that I'm also thinking of is Stephen, who has built, and a successful business, just that curiosity and geekiness that I like, that's me. I love like tinkering and learning new things. And so like his new project being so, I mean, you could paint the path of how it connected and why he got there from his current business, but like on paper, it's like, wow, that's a huge new, completely different thing from beer to bugs. It made sense internally, but it was like following the curiosity and the interest and the passion, and then finding the opportunity in that. Like I find that change isn't always like a friction laden thing. Sometimes it's just exciting. It's fun.
Absolutely, and like I'm just reflecting on all the guests we've had. Like, they're like it's a wide range of incredible folks doing wild things that have been through so much. It's great. I'm having a blast.
So yeah, I'm excited. I think that's again, we're not keeping super close track. If anybody paid attention, we were somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks. Scared. We're like points don't matter. There's no winning or losing. It's the conversations that matter, and I'm happy. Like we're more focused and more aligned, but we will be the most adaptable people in the room and expect some change along the way. So I'm super excited about the next season, and I would love anybody who actually got to this point to tell us if there's somebody that is an interesting story. I mean, it could be yourself, but also some of our more interesting conversations have come, like, they're not people we would have gone to ask. They were not stories that are necessarily everybody knew about them, but there's knowledge and value in sharing those stories.
Absolutely. I think that's probably a pretty good place for us to stop. This didn't need to be a 2 hour episode. It was more of a celebration and an update and a reflection. And I will say, if anyone wants this shirt, it'll be at Frenchie's in Miramichi by about 2 o'clock today. So,
All right. We'll see you in the next episode.